colleagues concerning Mr. Trayvon Martin's situation. As you well know, my district may or may not include Sanford, but in any event, I feel obligated, along with Senator Brayman, which is where he resided, and he traveled to Central Florida near my district, an obligation to get involved in the situation. I have issued a letter to Governor Rick Scott to ask him to appoint a special prosecutor. We know that we have the U.S. Attorney's Office involved, the FBI, but we still have a local prosecutor. And we're not contesting the veracity of the current prosecutor, but of course, through tradition, he has a relationship with the Sheriff Department, Police Department in the city of Sanford, and we think he should step down. And that is the legitimate reason why I asked the governor to appoint a special prosecutor to make sure there's no doubt, because in my community today, they're very upset, they're very excited, and they're very ready to ignite. So in an effort to make sure that this trial, when it does occur, that everything is above board, and that is the reason why I have asked for the special prosecutor. Secondly, we hope and we know that once there is an arrest, once there is a charge, and once there is a trial, whether or not Mr. Zimmerman is found guilty or not, the condition in the city of Sanford will persist. And I live in Sanford, and I know it's kind of like a plantation. And what I have done is ask my colleagues in the Florida Senate to join me for a fact-finding mission within the next 30 days, right there in the heart of Sanford, to find facts concerning the condition that African Americans are undergoing for the last 100 years. And to that extent, I invited Senator Brayman, who sits on the Government Operations Budget Committee. I have invited, and he's agreed to come. I have invited Senator Elizabeth Benaquesto, who's in charge of Economic Development Budget Committee, and she's agreed to come. I've invited Senator Rhonda Storms, who's in charge of Children and Family Services, and she's agreed to come. And of course, I've invited Senator Joe Negro, who's in charge of the Medicaid and Human Resources Budget, and he's agreed to come. And of course, the new leader of the Florida Senate, Senator Chris Smith, who sits as a ranking member of the Criminal Justice Committee, has agreed to come, as he's expressed some interest, is expressing interest in the bill that relates to Mr. Zimmerman use of deadly force. And I decided to call this committee together of these senators to make sure we take testimony about some of the needs, the bastions of racism there that we can deal with, to come back to Tallahassee next year and file some bills or put some items in the budget to make sure that the vestiges of racism that has been identified, that has existed in Sanford for over 100 years, can be slowly chipped away to make sure that Sanford is returned to the 2012 century. Something?
Yeah, I would agree to come with him because this has been a huge issue nationally, but for my district, it's been a huge issue for almost a month. Trayvon and his mother live in Miami Gardens, which is just around the corner from where I live and where I grew up. And I myself have two sons, and I feel her pain. And I, as her legislator, that's the reason that I've called for either a select committee or we have Senate hearing to readdress the provisions in the Stand Your Ground bill, which created what I believe is empower people to become vigilantes. And I think that cooler heads can prevail, and we can see that there's been unintended consequences as a result of what we passed. The uptick justifiable homicides has been 3 times since we passed that law. 3 times. So, you know, you go back to 2000 and come to now, you're talking about in the 30s or 40s. Since then, you've been in the hundreds. So, I really think we have some unintended consequences and some vagueness in that law. And I think that we need to get together as a legislative body or as a legislative committee appointed by this legislative body and relook at that law. So that's a big thing, and I think that will help to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Senator Smith?
Senator Smith has been a leader in the Senate over the last 4 years, and of course in the House. in terms of criminal justice, restoration of civil rights, and making sure incarcerated felons be able to be identified and get their rights restored once they're out of prison. So it's a great pleasure to have him today. Senator Smith.
Thank you. I look forward to working with Senator Silverman, who wants to take a holistic approach to what's going on in Sanford. Beyond this case, there are other things going on in Sanford, so I look forward to going to Sanford with him. Back in 2005, I served as the minority leader in the Florida House of Representatives. And at that time, the Florida Senate passed out the Standard Ground law, 39-0. But in the House, it was a different story. As the Democratic leader argued against the vagueness of this bill, and it's on record, we had 20 Democrats stand with me at the time, and 2 after the vote voted against this bill. And Representative Jack Seiler, who is taking the lead on this, even put an explanation of the vote in the record. And we talked about the vagueness of this bill, and how it could be used and how it could be misused. As Senator Brandon mentioned, justifiable homicides have gone up threefold since that bill. Meaning before we passed Standard Ground, there were about 30 or 40 justifiable homicides. In 2007, after the bill really took hold, you've seen them in the hundreds every year. And there's vagueness in the bill. There's problems with state attorneys and police officers being able to identify times when this law should be used and could be used. And so I think it's imperative, and that we've taken the lead on revisiting that law and putting parameters in on that law. The reasoning behind it was for people to defend their homesteads, and that's fine. And for people to not have to retreat, and that's fine. But when you leave it vague and you have people going to the fight or initiating contact, and then using this bill to justify a homicide, that is not the intent of the legislature. That's not the intent of this law. And I think it's imperative for the legislature to go back and revisit it and put in those parameters like we tried to do in 2005 when this bill was passed. Thank you.
Are there any questions that we can entertain?